Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
And interesting about the Corona chapter of the Black Panther Party, that became the information in 1970, I think it was. That became the distribution. After the newspaper left California, it was housed. The distribution office was originally the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party, and that's because we was close to the airport. Yeah. And out of that newspaper, 25,000 newspapers was distributed out of that office weekly.
Okay, so let's start this interview up in classic Detroit is Different style.
Okay.
So, welcome back to Detroit is Different podcast studios. I'm back with a special guest. This is a special series connecting with my brother Yusef Shakur, community movement builders, and he's introducing me to some of his big homies. And we definitely are always embracing the knowledge and the wisdom. And we know that the Black Panther Party plays a big role in Yusef's life. And I'm interviewing some Panthers, Yasmin Majid is here in full effect, representing the Corona chapter of the Black Panther Party. And as she knew, and I was looking, more so people knowing the boroughs. So that'd be Queens, New York, Jamaica, Queens. How are you feeling, Yasmin?
I am fine. I feel wonderful.
Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. We want black power.
All right, we are back in the Detroit is Different podcast studios, and this is a short introduction of a special series being brought from my big homie and my friend, Yusef Bunchy Shakur, when it comes to this event, because he's bringing some of his big homies, some of the Panthers in the mix to come to Detroit and connect with Detroit is Different and the Detroit community. So talk a little bit about what this means for you, why you chose to bring some Panthers to the city.
Well, we know Detroit history is relevant of that legacy. We had our own branch of the Black Panther Party. We had the League of Black Revolutionary Workers, the Shrine of Black Madonna, and the Nation of Islam. So that's all. That's in our DNA. That's in our makeup. And me having the ability to meet folks who are outside of Detroit doing that work, and bringing them back. But more importantly, never in my life that I thought I had the opportunity to meet folks like that. And because of the work, it put us in a position. And so, meeting them and not only meeting them, but developing a relationship. I think, let me emphasize that, developing a relationship with them and then with me, where we're at a level of comradeship. And so the work that I've been doing has been in the inspiration of what they've done as individuals, but also within the organization. So the best, we always talk about give back. For me, authentically, the best thing I can give back to my community, those folks like you're in my community, folks I fuck with, is bring folks who fuck with me, who I fuck with, that we fuck with. In that very authentic way, because it's family. You don't bring everybody. It's your family. See everybody, because it ain't meant to be like that.
Yeah. So, can you give a short introduction of the three Panthers, all different backgrounds, all different takes, that Detroit is Different is going to get introduced to?
Yeah, most definitely. You got Yasmin from New York, beautiful sister, very very principled. You got Hurl from the LA chapter, saying witty, and then you got my big bruh, father figure Thuh, and it's through Thuh I met Yasmin, I met her and so many others. And I met Thuh in 2010 at the U.S. Social Forum right here in Detroit. And like I say, he adopted me, as a comrade, and that comradeship developed into like a father-son relationship. Thuh's one of the most principled men outside of my father I've ever met. And so we've always stayed in touch. We continue to do work, not just me and Thuh, but all the others. And so it's just been a beautiful experience, man. Like to know that what you're doing is not in a vacuum. It's part of a larger narrative for the liberation of black people.
All right. So with that introduction, we're going to give you this opportunity to meet some of the Panthers. Thank you so much. And with that, Yusef, the last thing, where do you see these connections to continue to grow for Detroit and the Black Panther Party?
I think more importantly, man, we got Detroit is different. We got the Mama Cool House. We have Avalon Village. We have the Shed, and there's a few other folks. General Baker Institute, right? So for me and many of us, we fuck with each other, but sometimes we get in our own work that we get overwhelmed. And so my intention is, hey, since I fuck with you and what you do is different than what I do, building this ecosystem, sharing our resources, connecting the dots. I mean, you have a studio. Let's interview. Let's archive that, right? And so when you do something, we do it over there at the Mama Cool House. We do it at the Shed. We're intentionally building a network. We're building this new underground railroad system that's sharing resources, that's building our economy, that's developing our political framework, but pulling the history of where we was from, because history is not in the past, it's in the present. So the ability to touch folks, but again, you can bring anybody from the past, but are you bringing the right people that's saying the right shit that just ain't living in the past off their prestige, but living off of the ability of their principles to continue to want to make a difference? And so I think this is what, for me, this moment is, and we have the opportunity to connect the dots and to build this some type of ecosystem that is bigger than any individual institution. And I just concluded on this: like, if tomorrow, if the Mama Cool House closes, I think that's a blow to Detroit is different. If Detroit different closes tomorrow, I think that's a blow to the Shed. Like, we all need each other to survive, even though we're doing things differently. But like, cause you can't serve all black people in Detroit. I can't. However, collectively, we can serve black people, and we can serve them differently. We need our alternative media. We need a alternative space to buy books. We need an alternative space to host and come together. These are what these different entities work, but under the umbrella of love and support of black people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So thank you so much. Check this information out. Peace.
What we about to do?
About to do my natural hair show.
Ooh, it's
Yes.
going down, y'all.
This fall at the Andy again.
Fall 2021. Don't want to miss it.
I'm so excited. We're looking for the love, the energy, and the
The styles, the spirit, the everything that makes us what we are.
yes, my natural hair show 2021 at the Andy. Be there or be 7. You forgot the square?
And feel blessed to be in the city for the first time.
Oh, welcome to the
Yeah.
Chocolate City. Welcome to the Chocolate City. So, with that, Black Panther Party. I want to start. What was it that drew you towards the Black Panther Party?
Okay, I was a student at the time. I was 18 years old, and I had just graduated from high school, and I was in college, so I was a part of the Black Student Union on the college campus.
What college?
New York City Community College.
Okay.
It was in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn was where everything's happened. While Harlem is the black area, Brooklyn was instrumental, even with the Black Panther Party, because the first Black Panther Party office was in Brooklyn, Brooklyn, New York. But so from that, being involved on the college campus, being involved with Black Student Union, the next thing that happened at that time was the strike of in the New York City school system. So we started to work in our communities, and it was around the same time a Black Panther parties was established in Corona, and this was in I think it was around January of 1969. So immediately it was like a natural phase for me to be working in the community, and to work and be a part of that, of the Black Panther Party. But I'm going to take you back, because Corona, East Elmhurst, very unique community, and that's where Malcolm lived. So we was very conscious from the nation, and being very Black conscious even back then.
Okay.
And like I said, Malcolm lived in our community, one of the only mosques that was ever established by Malcolm himself was in Corona. So this is what I'm coming out of. So there was this consciousness back then, and it was just a sign of the time. It was like you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. And for me, being an activist, started then. In fact, I didn't even realize that I was an activist. It was just about doing work in the community.
And you kind of went into the second question, which is, what was the tone of the community then? As New York's definitely changed, even in my lifetime. I remember the first time I visited New York may have been like 1993, versus the last time I visited New York a couple years ago. The city's completely changed over. What was the tone throughout all of New York you remember as a child? What were the Black communities like? What was the pulse happening in and around?
The Black community was close-knit communities. Everybody knew each other. It was what I would say the village. That is, especially in our community, like Corona, East Elmhurst was a unique community. It was a middle class neighborhood, but you also had the street gangs. You also had the drugs. Drugs was coming into the neighborhood at the same time, and it was affecting everybody. And what was really, really, I mean, back then, it was like Corona, you had when the Black Panther Party started, the Black Panther Party started with members of 2 street gangs. And they came together, no longer fighting, but became politicized, and they started to organize. And then you had like people like me and several other students, they got involved. And then you had the party in Corona was while it was a subsection of the Jamaica chapter of the Black Panther Party, we was larger than the Jamaica chapter of the Black Panther Party. Where we had over 50 people, and the age range was from 30 to 14. So the coming together of 14-year-olds with 25-year-olds and doing things in the community, like we used to do. We had the breakfast program, but we also did all of the survival programs, because what we would do was read the paper, because reading the paper was educate to liberate. We would take that paper, read it, and then because when we went out to sell the paper, you had to know everything that was in that paper from the first page to the last page in order to build the conversations with the people. And one of the things that, and we did surveys, it wasn't about what the party wanted, it was what the people wanted. And that to me, I think was key, because we made these surveys. We went house to house, talking to people, and to find out the true needs of what was needed in our community. And one interesting thing is, a couple of years ago, we had a program at Langston Hughes Library. Langston Hughes Library is in Corona. Langston Hughes Library is similar to the Schomburg. The difference between Langston Hughes Library and the Schomburg is Langston Hughes Library is a circulating Black library, and it holds the largest circulation of Black information for the state of New York.
Wow.
Black Panthers was a part of the first Library Action Committee for that library. And so, and it was established in 1969, and the Black Panther office was right across the street, and members of the Black Panther Party was charged with being a part of the library action community. So working in the community, we was involved with the community, you know, even with the schools, everything. We were in everything.
So your family, mother, father, brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, how were they responding as you're joining the party and getting more active?
Okay, I tell the story all the time. I was the only child, but grew up in an extended family. My mother was the matriarch of her brothers and sisters, and I was the baby in the house. So that's the backdrop, and they were active. My uncle went to the March on Washington. They were involved. My aunt worked at a bar, and she met Malcolm, so they knew Malcolm.
Okay, did she know Malcolm as like Detroit Red?
No,
Malcolm,
she knew
Malcolm as Malcolm X.
She knew Malcolm X.
Malik El Shabazz. Okay.
She knew Malcolm X,
Okay.
Malik El Shabazz. When Malcolm was killed, my family was very upset.
Yeah.
You know, I was 15 years old at the time. So, yeah, they knew Malcolm. And Malcolm used to go to this place called Frank's Steakhouse and have classes, the bar.
Yeah.
And he would be in there, and my aunt was a barmaid. So she
Wow.
personally knew Malcolm, you
Okay.
know, and they knew Malcolm.
Wow.
So with that said, it was, my family was active, but they were working class. My mom, like I said, she was the matriarch of the family. And one time, the FBI came to my house. And my mother at the time didn't realize how involved I was in the Black Panther Party. So once they left, my mother said to me, she said, you know something? I can understand you wanting to be a part of this. I understand all that. But I think you need to join the NAACP. And with that, I was very upset with her, and was like, because at that point, we was committed.
Yeah.
And we had this love for the people, and actually we thought we would die for the people. So the fear of death was never a part of what we was about. We knew that we wanted to destroy and make the world better for people, and fear was never in our vocabulary, you know?
Now, as you get that awakening, as in the other interview that I just had with Mr. Taylor, you know, the ugliness and the intentional hatred and violence of this nation, you have such a firsthand look at just being a part of the Panther Party and the way that the FBI has harassed, followed, and tracked your whole life, and most people in that party. When you were that age, with the fearlessness and looking at death as a possibility for the people, you know, as you look back at that, what are some of the words that you share to the young people now that are like, yeah, I'm ready to get out here, and I feel the same, and you know, we got to take it to the system? Like, what is it now that you impart on some of the young people, because you've seen just really how real this can be, as in a lot of ways, I think, isn't it just in my from what I think and I look at it, America's goal was to destruct any black unity or community.
Exactly. But you know, when you're in it, like when we was in the party, I don't think that we ever thought that the viciousness of this government in destroying us. I don't believe that was in our minds. We knew that we were in the face of death, but I don't think that we understood the viciousness of that time. And what I often say to young people today is, you have to be aware of your environment, because I said two things that the Black Panther Party, I felt, taught us was to be aware of your environment and know who is around you as far as the people. And if someone suggests that you do something that's outrageous, that don't make any sense, step back from that person. Because more often than not, they are the informants, they are the provocateurs. And so be very mindful of that and always speak truth. Was taught and in the party is to never bite, to talk about people that you don't want to say in front of their face. It reduces the tension, it reduces the gossiping, it reduces all of that if you're upright and upfront with people. And I think that's what the party definitely taught me. And so if I and people like Afeni said something to you, or she's gonna say, if she's not gonna say it behind your back.
And we're speaking about Tupac's mother,
right? That's
Tupac Shakur's mother.
Exactly.
Brilliant, mind of an attorney, obviously.
Oh yeah. If one of the things, I mean, if a young person was just talking to me about that, and I said, you know what? One of the things that the party taught us was to read, and to read and study. We was told no investigation, no right to speak. So you spoke, you followed up, you actually would study. One brother was saying just recently, he said, we went into the party thinking he was going to get a gun, and they opened up the books and gave him books to read. You could talk, I don't care who you speak to that was in the Black Panther Party. One of the things that was really, really important was political education. There was always PE, and that's it. So it's really about study, and it's not enough for me to tell you something. It's what I tell you, you have to then go and investigate and get a book. And that's what I tell young people. Just don't take my word for anything. Find out what is true. And the only way, and it's like the easy fix now is that young people will pull up something, what they saw on YouTube, or what is fact and what is fact and what is fiction. And always that's what I think my advice has always been, to study.
So within this studying, definitely comes the wisdom of age now too. You have that perspective. So as you've seen the movement, the people, the community, your city change, what has been your role in still advocating for and being a servant to the people as you've grown?
I had the fortune of sitting at this on the floor, listening to our great minds like Dr. Henry Clark, like Queen Mother Moore, Dr. Ben. We would sit and listen to them and know our history. And what I see my role as an elder is to do the same thing to our young people, because those were the valuable information that was given to me that we can pass on, because we can't forget our history. We cannot allow our history to not be known. It's not just about the Black Panther Party. Just think about the connection of Nat Turner, and we have to look at it as a continuum of struggle. But you have to know that history. You have to know that continuum of struggle and connect it together. And also always remember that we came from the only people that came here that didn't want to be here. And we have continued to struggle, and we have a right to struggle. So for young people today, I say, don't allow anyone to think that you shouldn't struggle, because you should, and this struggle continues. Like I said, it continues from the day we came off the shores of Africa till today. And we have to realize that we are still at war and we have a right to fight, because they changed that. They want to make us feel that we shouldn't fight, or someone else has helped us to fight, and realize that nobody has ever helped us to fight. We have always, from the freedom of slavery, if you go back in our history, you'll know that there was black people fighting, and the only reason why we're free today is because of the black people that fought for our freedom. And it's the same thing today. When the Black Panthers, we were just a continuum of struggle.
And as you talk about that continuation and knowing history, I do want your opinion on, especially nowadays, it's like the woke movement, the industrialization sometimes and romanticism of the work of activism. And, so even when watching the Judas and the Black Messiah, it's one of those things. I talk to my dad, I'm like, I like it and it's good. It'll wake some folks up, but I'm like, that's about as good as Hollywood can get at telling one of these stories. But it's still with certain points in that film where I'm like, I do not like this characterization, because it is not showing the true face of the FBI and the monsters the violence that was. How do you take being a Panther right now and seeing, it could be the T-shirts, the books. I have the book of all of a book of like many of the Panther newspapers and things like that, and of the artwork and stuff like that. But in this consciousness, as I grow older, creating more media now, I don't know who was connected to this. How do the Panthers feel that that the movement and a lot of you guys' work is right now being, industrialized and marketed and recapitalized and repackaged and kind of told from a framework that may, in my mind, not be the truth.
Right. But that would also create conversation. What I said is, okay, for 50 years, the Black Panther Party was 50 years ago, right? That the Black Panther Party was established. But once a Panther, we say once a Panther, always a Panther, because the knowledge. So we don't, one comrade, if you say former Panther, she said, we're never former Panthers. We are Panthers because of the ideology, right? Yeah. So for me, I look at comrades and they're upset about, they say, why Judas and the Messiah, they show that snitch and all that. And what I said is that Judas and the Messiah becomes a teaching tool, and it allows us to tell the truth and to open up what is facts. It's the same thing to me, it's the same thing when you talk about Panther, the cartoon character Panther. Yeah. It allowed us, it gave us the opportunity, and we have to seize that moment to be able to talk about what is true, what is history, what will open up the minds of young people, because when I talk to people, and I always say to young people, and the first thing they say is, okay, when you think about the Black Panther Party, what do you envision? Who do you see? The face of the Black Panther Party, you see black men with guns. But did you know 60% of the Black Panther Party was women?
And I have a point on that too. As we talk about the history, it's also been a lot of talks of that the Black Panther Party was very misogynistic and sexist and oppressive towards women. So the question that I have for you is there truth in any of this narrative being said? And where does this narrative come from? If it's not truth,
you know what? What I say to that is it's based on who you are and where you came from. We cannot take society. We live in this society. We cannot take this society, and personality and character comes wherever you are. So within the Black Panther Party, yes, you had that. But in certain areas you didn't, because when you think about, if you look at, it depends on the area. Because if you think about it, you have Afeni, right? Yeah. She was a section leader of the Harlem branch. So what does that tell you? one of the first captains in New York was Brenda Hyson. A sister came out of the New York chapter, right? One of the first captains. So you think about it, based on, I'm not saying that this stuff didn't happen, because it did. But based, like I said, based on who you are, where you came from, what happened. I can say for myself, being in the Black Panther Party, everybody brings stuff into the party. But if you brought it, like a brother in 50 years ago, right, with the anniversary of the party, right, there was this brother that I ran into, and when I saw him, I said, hi, do you remember me? He said, yeah, sister, I remember you. Because you know what? I stopped that brother from, he was in leadership, and young girls, he was like trying to get with the young girls,
he was
right?
Exploiting his position.
Right, right. But before that person came into the party, he was a pimp. So I at the same time, I stood up to him.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to do this. So that's my experience in the party. So, and I can only speak about my experience, but I do know that things like that was happening. And several years ago, we had a sisters gathering, and we found out some of the stories, and a number of us was shocked to hear some of the stories that some of those sisters was telling us. But but like I said, people come into the party with personalities, and nothing changed. But sometimes it does change. It's based on who you are.
Yeah, and as you talk about the changes, let's talk a little bit about your hometown. And I don't know where you stay now, but are you still based in New York?
I still live in New York.
So let's talk a little bit.
I live in New York, and actually, I left the party, and I raised my family. Became a single parent, and I raised my daughters. And in 1997, when Geronimo Pratt came home, and he came to New York, I went to one of the things where G was, and I got back involved in the party, but from a different way. At that time, it was during the time of the Jericho movement. It was just the beginning of them starting Jericho. And what...
Can you explain the Jericho movement?
Jericho it's the amnesty to free political prisoners that was started by the brothers inside, Jalil and them. They started this organization, and they had a march in 1998 to the Capitol and bringing awareness of political prisoners. But what got me involved was talking to G, and I asked him, I said, because I hadn't been involved, right? And I asked him about Rochelle McGee, and he said, Rochelle, she's still in jail. I was like, floored. You gotta be kidding me. And that got me involved. So I've been involved with the Jericho movement, political prisoners, since then, since 1997. And for me, the main political prisoners for me were Panther political prisoners. Yeah. Because while everybody else was coming home, very few Panthers was coming home. Yeah. And I took a look at that and said, why are Panthers still in prison? Yeah. And one woman told me, while Panthers were charged with different crimes, they were charged with most of them were charged with killing police officers. Yeah. And those were their charges. Those were the conspiracy charges, where other people were charged with maybe driving the car. But so that we still have Panthers that's been in prison for 50 years.
It's a reason why Assata Shakur is still on the top of the FBI's most wanted list.
Exactly. And we have to compare an
aging woman that, I mean, at this point in time,
she's a senior, she's an elder, and you have to compare Assata to Harriet Tubman. Yeah. And you look at, and I used to say, you compare G, who did 27 years to the Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
But when you think about Jalil, he did almost 50 years. And we have, like when I got involved, we had 22 Panthers in prison. Now we have 9. Unfortunately, some of those that have come home in the box.
Yeah.
They never made. They was captive. They've never made it home, and that's been my. I can't forget them. I can't, and I won't, and I won't let anybody forget.
And that's your work now.
And that's the work that I'm involved in. I'm involved in political prisoner work and making people aware that they're political prisoners, and making people understand that we have to get them home because they are our elders. They are our Dr. Henry Clarks.
Yeah.
That's who they are. I met a brother that I used to work with. I worked for an alternative to incarceration for women in New York. It's one of the only women-centered alternative to jail in the city of New York. And I used to work there. And this brother came home from jail, and he worked in the agency. So one day we were sitting there talking, and he found out I was a Panther. And he said to me, he said, "Do you know Bashir Hamid?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you know Albert Washington?" I said, "Yes, I know them." He said, "Let them know what I'm doing now. I'm getting my master's degree. I'm doing this." He said, "Those brothers are the ones that turned me around."
Wow.
I was a knucklehead when I went to jail, and I came out and started to work. So let them know. And the interesting thing is that we have, I'm part of the Black Panther Party Commemoration Committee. And we're in our 13th year of doing a film festival where we take a theme from the 10-point platform and program, and we show movies in a documentary film in Harlem.
Yeah.
And we have a question and answer part where we have people come and talk. A couple of years ago, we were showing the conversation with Albert Noah Washington. Noah was one of the political prisoners who died of liver cancer in prison. And this young guy was walking past the film, and he saw. He decided to come in. He came in, and on the screen was Noah talking, because Noah was dying, and he was talking about the struggle and how he wouldn't change anything, and he has no regrets. And after it was all over, this young guy got up and he said, "Noah is the reason that I'm on the street." He said he didn't have no idea that we was showing
What was happening
happening in that theater. But he got up and he said, "Now I work for prison reentry program." And he said, "I owe it all to Sheikh Noah." So this is the kind of work that we do, and this is what is our compassion. And then I'm also a part of the Black Panther Party Alumni Association, where we support our political prisoners, we support our fallen comrades, and we try to do work around supporting families and making young people aware of the history of the Black Panther Party.
Definitely. And that's a piece that I always thought was very interesting, the stories of those second generation Panthers, because, you know, that work impacted definitely the sons and daughters, as we know, you know, Tupac and Kanye West and so many others,
Right.
And you know, people that don't even know, and just that, you know, when we think of their thought processes towards life when it comes to that. As we get to a close, I definitely want you to share how people can get in contact with the work and support what you're doing. But along with that, like I say, you know, what do you see in the future just for New York when it comes to activism and Black people coming together right now? Because, yeah, New York City is just, as I was kind of getting to that question, a lot has changed. What do you see as next in organizing there for Black folks?
Well, last year I was involved with the Malcolm X Grassroots and the Movement for Black Lives. They had an intergenerational group, and they had elder Panthers with the young people, and we was involved with that work, and I just feel so. This generation, I'm so excited about it because this generation of young people remind me of when I was 18, 19 years. They're fired up, and I just want to be a part of guiding them like Dr. Clark and them guided us.
Okay.
And because there is, I have a lot of hope in the generation, the new, and they have the technology and they have the ability to take it to the next level, and that's what I see.
So you're embracing that
Oh,
role
yeah,
of being
yeah,
a mentor.
I'm so happy. I'm
as I
so
say,
proud
a big
of-
homie.
Oh yeah, I'm just so amazed. And then when like I said, the Malcolm X grassroots youngsters, the movement for Black Lives youngsters, I'm just so excited about being a part of, and so that they don't get to stumble, because they are fired up, and I love the fact that they're fired up.
Yeah, that's deep. How do people get in contact with you and support?
Well, we're part of. If you go to the National Alumni Association of the Black Panther Party, we have a website.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
so-
and I just want to bring up one other thing.
okay.
With Langston Hughes Library, right now, we have been involved because now I sit on the board of Langston Hughes Library.
Congratulations.
And what we have done is helped create the a gap, where the gap was. We have created this group with this powerful young director that's there, where she is so open to helping involved with the movement. And so she's done a lot of they used to have a political prisoners dinner, and it was done at 1199, and it's been done at different places. But before the pandemic, we was able to have this political prisoners dinner at Langston Hughes Library. So being able to do those connections has been very important. That's the kind of stuff. So use Panthers to help bridge the gap and help bring it to the next level, because as long as we're here, we're able to talk about it. We're able to tell you what the history, so that you won't make the same mistakes.
That's big. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.